you already know pretty well Peter, representing SRC Netherlands, but I would like to ask to the stage also the following gentlemen. I'm sorry, at this time we do not have the ladies here, but afterwards I promise they will be. First, Jaak Vilipus, Head of Maritime Department from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications. Jaak. Then Kristjan Tabri, who is a professor of naval structures and technology at the Tallinn University of Technology, and is also heading the competence center there of maritime technology. And Rimo Timm, who is a head of sales and marketing department at the Baltic Workboats, which is another significant company in the field of maritime industry. So very strong minds here on the stage. And I would like to ask first about the white book, which is compiled by the Estonia's Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication. And this white book will cover a period up to 2035, am I right?
Yes.
And so it will cover, let's say, the Estonia's ambition in the field of maritime, not only industry, but also the maritime economy as a whole. So what might be the, let's say, main pillars of this strategy regarding topics of today? Jaak.
Yes, thank you. Actually, this process of creating this white book has been quite challenging. Therefore, I would like to thank all participants who have taken part in it, especially the private and public sector participants who are also here and also behind the screens, and also from my team, Red, who has actually compiled all these ideas into the one book. But I would like to a little bit specify about this white book. If you are speaking about this book, then it's actually a sub-document under Transport and Movement Development Plan. That's why it's actually a little bit restricting the coverage. But the main pillars under these documents are actually, if you are looking this competitiveness in marine industry and shipping, then this is one of the 5 priority topics in this document. But there is also coverage, the green transition, educational part, cultural heritage, and etc. So total 5 priority levels. But the marine industry is covered mainly in this first topic that regards the overall competitiveness.
Okay. Kristjan, you are also a member of the board at the Association of Estonian Marine Industries, and therefore you have some kind of helicopter view about the whole industry. So there is always a question that how we can cope with the compete in high value added supply, and so could you describe this technological ability, but also existence of sufficient labor force, which we talked before, of Estonian company in the Estonian market to follow these guidelines and to make the maritime industry more and more prosperous?
Yeah, maybe a little bit to continue from this white book topic. Maritime Association also proposed some changes there to clearly specify what is maritime industry and what is shipping, because sometimes we tend to mix them. So I think this process with white book probably is still a little bit going on. Sorry. But now going to your question, I think for Estonian maritime industry, it's quite similar how you ended your presentation, because price obviously is not the competitive advantage anymore. And I think we all agree that this industry is going through quite a lot of changes. We have quite strict environmental regulations and norms which are regulating the industry, and we have to go with this. And by that I would say there are 3 things what we should be able to handle in order to be successful. One is technology, one is capital, and one is actually the intellectual property rights. Because technology is changing quite a lot, what we have to be able to install to ships. For example, also this public tender to design this 5th ferry to Estonia, the technological requirements there were extremely high level. I mean, it's not, you can't just build a ship or design a ship how you did 10 years ago. It's technologically, it should be something totally different, because I think it was like 3 different energy sources on board the ship. So you have to be able to develop this technology, implement this technology, and use this in your business. So this is one thing. And of course, if we move more to a project where we like to sell our own products or technologies, then we also need quite a lot of capital. From my personal experience, we have also been involved in developing autonomous vessel, and we know how capital intensive it is. And you have to get this capital from somewhere in order to be able to do this. And then at the end of the project, you would also like to own the intellectual property of this product. And this also means that you have to have your own money to develop it. So I think those 3 things, technology, capital, and intellectual property rights, are really the things where we have to be strong if we want to be successful or if we want to survive at all.
Mm-hmm. Is the skilled labor force the main thing we lack?
Maybe the skilled labor force, of course, there is shortage of that. And when it comes to labor force, I think what I see is that if the people enter the university or if they leave the university, they would be quite suitable for marine engineering field. But then you have, Estonia is very proud of their technology startups, and of course we should be very proud. But they represent very strong competition to our field. And I have also seen that those experts who have educated as naval architects, they go to those new modern tech companies because they get cool salaries, it's very fancy industry, and they really go to those sectors. And this we see already, really with very practical and realistic examples. So, but I think the way against that is really we have to make sure that the public image of our industry is very good. Because when I was studying in Finland, I would say the number of naval architecture students, it was in quite direct correlation with the news, how the industry was treated in the newspapers. If there were news that those big companies in Finland are not doing good, the number of students went down. If the news were very positive, the number of students went up. At the moment, I know that in Finland they have very many, relatively, but they have many students in naval architecture field, which means that in Finland it's very popular at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gentlemen, would you like to add anything to that comment? Perhaps on supply side, fuel, steel, and other raw materials have become much more and more expensive, and at the same time we have to get over the consequences of COVID pandemic, like unearned profit, therefore less ability to make new investments and move up in the value chain. And we are definitely, all of us, worried about the energy prices of gas and electricity. Therefore, we have also gaps on the development side. Peter, how can we cope with such volatility on the European level?
Yeah. In this price increment over all sorts of half products and also over the oil and gas, that is of course that's a global thing. So I like to see that because it's global and not only in Europe. I like to see that as more than as an advantage for new reality than that it brings Europe back behind the carriage, so to say. I understood the last couple of days here in Estonia that your inflation rate is going now between 20 to 25%.
25 already, yes.
And 2/3 is energy cost, and the rest is increase of prices. The Netherlands, we are at 14, 15%. I've heard figures of 19. Same story, 2/3, 75% energy levels. So last week I was in Bangladesh, I was in Thailand, and I was in Singapore. And actually, to my astonishment, it's happening there as well. Also, the same inflation rates are adding. Singapore was already expensive, now it's more expensive than Norway, but I haven't been in Norway in the last week, so maybe it also will there have an impact. And I think what we see in this global imbalance that we have with Russia, Ukraine, with China, Taiwan, with North Korea, with Erdogan and Greece, and then all these balances now. From a positive side, it will slowly fade out, and we have to live with the new reality. And the people who are at the bottom of the hill, near the lake, they will get their feet wet the fastest, and the people who are a bit better off and have a bit more meat on the bones to survive, they will get through this situation. But yeah, it's for me it's a new reality. Because it's global and not local.
Remo, Baltic Workboats is a company which has had really rapid development in these 2 decades, and you also keep an eye on the development of the market as a whole. So what could be the competitive advantages of Estonian maritime industry in the nearest future in your mind? How can we overcome these turbulences and keep the Estonian maritime industry able to expand and increase its competitiveness?
I think especially now I'm talking from the shipyard perspective, of course, mainly, and I would say that these topics have been touched already during the discussion. There are 2 main categories, I would say. One of them is technological part and another one is the economical part. From technological perspective, I think the main advantage of Estonian companies or main advantage of Estonian companies in this industry should be that we are rather small compared to the really big boys, and therefore we can be more flexible and adjust our let's say adjust our production, our products according to the market needs more flexibly. And another thing is, of course, regarding this technological part, we always have to be the front runners in that sector as well, to keep our products competitive, to offer the most up-to-date propulsion solutions, high grade of automation in our vessels, offer the as ergonomical work conditions for the crew members, all these kind of things which we see also in tenders are becoming more predominant, and then these level of quality of the products is increasing constantly. And from the economical side, I would say that especially during these turbulent times, it would be really appreciated, or it is really needed that government and government organizations also, let's say, try to help the industry as much as possible. And this is not only by, I don't talk direct subsidizations, although at the moment we have heard the news the German government, for example, are going to subsidize their companies as well. And this puts us into uneven, let's say, starting position with the German companies, because we are participating in the same tenders all over the European Union. And if they have, for example, energy subsidizations and we don't, then of course our input prices are higher in the starting point. So the government, it would be really appreciated if government will look at opportunities to help our industry or our industry from that perspective. And there are also like more indirect measures, I would say. For example, in the beginning of this year, Baltic Workboats was actually selected as the best offerer for one really big contract in total worth over $200 million. But there were also other reasons, but one of the reasons why we couldn't sign this contract was the reason that Estonia actually doesn't have this governmental support in that scope that they would issue the export guarantees for the prepayments of the customer. And this is example for, again, the service or which is available in our neighbors, Finland, in form of Finvero. they grant, let's say, bigger export guarantees, so it is easier for the companies to enter new markets and sign big contracts because they have the backing of the government in that sense. And I would like to bring out one more thing. This is related to the, let's say, building the first in the series or first product in the market, in market segment, and this is at the moment we see, as Peter already touched, let's say the Russian aggression against Ukraine, USA, United States, China, Taiwan tensions. Then the Navy and military segment in general have been booming within the last half a year, and we have delivered a couple of vessels to Estonian Navy last year, but we would like to see from our side that if the government has, for example, patrol vessels, Navy vessels, if they have some projects in mind, then when there is a possibility to bring those projects forward in that sense. So Baltic workboats, for example, from our perspective, we could, let's say, develop some larger Navy platform, and we would have a reference to also enter the foreign markets, because it's really difficult to get into the foreign markets if you don't have a reference, and usually it is it's like good or common practice that you first deliver to in cooperation with your own country, develop the product, and then you have the reference to enter the other markets. So these would be the main points I would point out from the shipyard perspective, especially important today at these turbulent times.
You have the education and also experience as a naval engineer.
Yes.
So Peter already brought out in his presentation, let's say, the Estonia's ability to be more competitive in the field of cybersecurity, also in maritime industry. Well, we all know that definitely this digitalization of ships does not mean just to bring in more cables and more servers. Actually, the ships need to be designed from the scratch in absolutely different way. So might it be also some point of, let's say, growing its competitive advantage for Estonia as well?
Yes, I think so. And from Baltic workboats perspective, I would again say that we have, let's say, invested heavily into that department as well. We have like really high-grade automation and control systems for the vessels, which are, for example, developed in-house. So we have like really big electrical and automation engineering department as well within our company, and we have offered, like, I think we have installed this system onto our vessels for the last 10 years, and we also have like fully secured remote monitoring and control opportunities as well. So we see that we are investing into this area, of course, every year even more to make the systems even more better and offer more opportunities. But we have already, let's say, done it like over the past years as well. So we see that this optimization and then security.
In this seminar, we are searching new perspectives for engineering and metal industry. And as this industry has been in Estonia historically strongly connected with maritime industry, but because of Soviet period, actually, these connections have somehow weakened, I should say. What kind of unused possibilities do you see in combining these two industries in Estonia to strengthen our economy? Jaak, perhaps it's
Yes, thank you. The history has been very long with the shipping and heavy industry, actually, and we from the ministry side actually see that we should more look them together, not as separate. And one way to do it is by promoting, if I take one example, that we are now preparing a shipping package and a lot of changes there, then we already look how to combine so that we can promote the services and products that our industry is offering and to offer them to the shipping industry and by nudging them to use them, and that is the policy that we can actually use. And from that point of view, we can see how we can a little bit more progress and promote our industry.
Perhaps we can talk also about the productivity, which is measured as GDP per working hour. So according to our world in data, Netherlands has globally the position number 7 with $70 per hour worked, just before Germany and France. And Estonia has position number 32 with $37 per hour, just before Poland. So you see the difference between these two countries is almost 2 times. So definitely we can ask, where does it come from? Is it not enough automation and digitalization, and not enough skilled leadership and maybe also optimization? So if to follow these experiences which Netherlands has, what can Estonia learn from the Dutch journey so far? Christian.
Yeah. I think obviously the way to be more productive is that you are higher in the value chain, and which means that you really have to become either a product owner or this intellectual property owner, because I think also our steel industry sector and also marine engineering or shipbuilding sector, it has grown for subcontracting sector, and I would say it's moving up. And you see several companies, they are already getting much higher in this industry. But I think also the companies should be really active in developing those new technologies, because, for example, I have been in several big European R&D projects, and there are always the maritime industries of Germany, France, Netherlands, and Italy present. You don't almost have any project without those companies, and they are really putting those projects together to develop their products further. So I think what should happen, that there are more and more Estonian companies also working in those large development projects where they really are trying to develop their own products and solutions. But I would say the participation of Estonian companies in such projects has gone up quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gentlemen, I think that we together, Dutch and Estonian maritime industry, have to think about Ukraine as well. We all have some strong understanding about Ukraine as a source of raw materials, but there are so many skilled labor also as marine workers, sailors, but also in maritime industry in Ukraine. So there is a question, I hope it will be more and more hot, that how to cope with this Ukrainian maritime industry right after the end of war. So we need their welders, their other skilled labor, but also raw materials and subcontracting. They need Estonian and European investments, know-how, business culture and contact. So how can we combine Estonian and Dutch maritime industry to help our Ukrainian partners? Peter, what's your point?
Yes, the situation before the war was that the Ukrainians could only come on a special permit to work in Europe, as they were not part of the European Union. Now, with this war, that those rules have been changed. So I foresee, I expect that after the end of the war, Ukrainians will be considered to be European, and then work under this under these legislations that the European Union has set up. Yes, historically, labor from Ukraine is, if you can talk about, is cheaper than I would say average in Europe. Maybe Czech Republic or Moldavia, but the rest is I consider higher. But yes, they will go back, and they will try to build up their country. So how these movements of labor is going to move over, yeah, that's. I think nobody really can foresee what it will happen. In the end, I think there becomes an equilibrium whereby, again, the people that can make more money by working hard abroad and then bring that money back, as most immigrant moves are, bring that back, build a better life, in their country of origin, that is going to take place. But I think you talk about 5 years to a decade now. That's in the long run. And I also foresee that Europe will find a way, one way or the other, to actually embed Ukraine in Europe. That is something I think on the political field that cannot be, that's going to happen.
Jaak, could you talk about the possible plans in that context of the ministry? What might be the initiatives, what we can see in the future?
There have been a lot of discussions between the Ukrainian state and Estonian to offer and participate in the rebuilding of Ukraine. But from my department side, the maritime, especially the sailor side, we have now actually created possibilities for the Ukrainian sailors to renew their certificates in here. So that is one way we have participated. And it is not an easy topic, so I cannot much comment on that because it can go either way. So.
Understandable. Do we have any questions first from the internet, from our viewers? Margus, any questions from the internet? No, not yet. But from the audience, from here.
Okay, any questions from the audience? I don't see any hands as yet. I do now. That's very good.
Thank you. Janis Pri from Saaremaa County Council of Economy. Question. This was an example that our maritime industry need export guarantees. That there was a contract, there was a reason and a possibility for contract about 200 million euros, and we don't have enough guarantee possibility. I have a question to Jaak Philippus. What you have made for such kind solution, and where is, how to tell, where is, we have a lack of will, lack of knowledge, or some other reasons? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Actually, from the minister's side, we have been working on this collateral issue. We have been discussing also when we were creating the white book together with all participants from the private sector, and hopefully next year we are going to have already a mechanism for that also. But I cannot specify more details. But there is no lack of will. I have to specify that our maritime department was created 1.5 years ago. So we have a lot to do. First, we need to make this strategical document, the white book, and from there we can more specifically advance with these issues. But in the white book would be the first step. So there's definitely no lack of will or other issues here. But we have to move forward. We have to move forward together, and also from the private sector, there is very. We see that there is a need to put more effort on this strategical communication from that perspective also. So together we can make it. No, I don't see any problems and lack of will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Good, good. Any other questions then from the audience?
In this white book, do you have some kind of objective that in 2035 maritime industry will be that percentage of Estonian GDP, or Estonian companies are earning that amount of money?
If we are looking at this marine industry specifically, we have not yet put it, because this is one topic that is still not closed. We are still working on that. We are also struggling with the statistical part. We, as everybody knows, that we don't have very good statistics on the maritime industry. It's all over different other segments, and that is one project also that we are also now been dealing with. And then we can measure. Otherwise, we cannot measure if we don't have the coverage of statistics there.
Yes, Kristi.
Yeah, what Maritime Association proposed that it was the increase in productivity. So we have the understanding or aim where our productivity should go, and this we have proposed to be included in the white book, but not as a percentage of industry.
And can you bring out the objective as a number? What might be the productivity?
Not at the moment.
Okay. We can have a talk about it later. Yes. Okay, any more questions?
Get this phone switched on. Mike, yeah, thank you. I have a question about productivity. We pointed out the difference in productivity between the Netherlands and Estonia. And if we see productivity as a potential driver for economic growth, then it's perhaps more important not to have a big productivity, but a productivity that has room to grow. It's my distinct impression that in the Netherlands we are moving towards the boundaries of productivity, where at the same time I have the impression that in Estonia there's still room to improve. Now you mentioned, Christian, intellectual property as a means to increase productivity, but how about looking at increasing value adds through things like moving from suppliers to system integrators, owning the customer relationship? Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I would say if you are a system integrator, then you are in a very good spot already. And I think Baltic Workboats is also kind of a system integrator already. For example, if you look on big shipyards, I don't know, Meyer Werft or Turku shipyard, they are integrators. They purchase everything. They almost don't do steelworks anymore. They just weld it together. So obviously this is the way to go, that you put the systems together. And also, let's say if we talk of robotic vessels, it's again, you have thousands of providers and technologies what you have to put together, and the value what you create at the end is how you put it together and that you really put the correct components together. So
exactly,
yeah.
The next challenge for the Estonian industry. Peter.
Yes, in Christian, in addition to if you go for high value system integration, then you also have to bear in mind that what you do is you actually create vessels of a very high value. And that means that if you build 3-4 vessels of a high value in a year, and suddenly you lose one order, then your whole system is actually very vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I've seen, for instance, in South Korea this happening, whereby first Hyundai was building 150 vessels a year, and that was all steel work and paint work, and then there was an enormous amount of labor. Then the whole merchant marine market collapsed, and they were focusing on system integration, building drilling vessels of $700–800 million a piece. And then that market collapsed, and then they were out of the market because, well, they were not out of the market, but they really went through really hard times. So there is
I would like to add that that's why the Finnish shipyard, Turku shipyard, is more or less sold after every 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks
Okay,
for
gentlemen.
putting things in perspective, Peter.
Yeah.
We are about to finish, I think.
Yes, there is one short question. Perhaps we can go
good.
there.
Thanks.
Thank you. Martin Mileransky from Melior and also director of 3DL from ECA. I have a question, I guess it's to Christian. You mentioned that you're looking, or you actually need different energy sources on ships, like 3 or more. So in the long run, what kind of energy sources in perspective of green tech are you looking towards?
I'm not sure, did I heard you correctly? What kind of energy sources will be used
like
in future?
engines, what types of engines and what types of
We don't know.
drivelines for producing
We don't know.
it? You don't know.
Yeah, that's the answer. I was reading, I think it was a technology report from DNV, which was published this summer, and the conclusion was that it has never been so bad time to predict what will be the future energy. So is it methanol, hydrogen, something else? I think we don't know, or maybe someone knows.
Methanol, hydrogen, ammonia,
Yeah.
who knows?
Whatever. Okay, but anyway, we have to find it out. Thank you.
Good.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt this very interesting discussion because of the time schedule. We will have also some gifts on behalf of the Federation of Estonian Engineering Industry and also Enterprise Estonia. Alexandra, you can come. Let's say, we are here not just because of this seminar, but also because of this trade fair here. But we are here also because of the sightseeing. Because you see, this interior here is not changed a lot during last 30 years. These premises will be demolished next summer. And I think it is some kind of time journey also for us to take a look at these rooms which are behind these walls, where we will have our coffee break. So we can continue our discussion there and then come back here and have a talk starting from 12:15. So thank you very much.
Okay. I think it's important not only to get a coffee, but also a cookie for your blood sugar level. We have a lunch only at 1:45.
Yeah. So, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.